Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
The night hung quiet over Hogwarts Castle, a silence rare and almost reverent. The great towers stood like dark sentinels against the pale moon, their spires reflected upon the still waters of the Black Lake. The war was over, Voldemort defeated, his shadow gone, but peace, it seemed, was still learning how to breathe again. Within the castle's ancient walls, life had begun to return. The great doors had been repaired, portraits rehung, and laughter, though softer than before, had started to echo once more through the corridors. Yet beyond the warmth of torchlight and stone, the lake remained untouched, its depths cold and unknowable as ever. Harry Potter stood by the window of the newly restored Gryffindor common room, watching the moonlight ripple across the lake's surface. He had returned to Hogwarts not as a student exactly, but as something in between. A helper, a guide to younger students, and a quiet reminder that the world could heal. Professor McGonagall had asked him, Hermione, and Neville to stay for a time, helping rebuild the heart of the school. Hermione sat near the fire, a stack of books beside her as usual, her quill scratching steadily. "You're staring at that lake again," she said without looking up. Harry smiled faintly. "It's strange, peaceful, but not quite right, like it's watching us." Neville, sitting in an armchair with Trevor the Toad asleep on his lap, looked up. "The lake's always been a bit eerie at night. The mer people, the giant squid. Who knows what else is down there?" Hermione finally looked up, her brow furrowed. "Still, it's been unusually quiet lately. No ripples, no songs from the merfolk. Professor McGonagall said the caretaker saw something near the shore last week, something glowing." Before Harry could answer, a soft sound drifted through the open window. It was faint, like the hum of a lullaby sung from far beneath the surface. It rose and fell with the rhythm of waves that weren't there. The three exchanged glances. "That," Neville whispered, "wasn't the wind." The sound faded as quickly as it had come. They stood in silence, each uncertain if they had truly heard it, but Harry knew the feeling well. That creeping chill of something unseen stirring near the edge of the familiar world. The next morning the rumors began. By breakfast, students were whispering across the great hall. A second-year Ravenclaw claimed she'd seen a woman standing on the water just before dawn, her robes shining like silver mist. Another swore he'd heard her weeping softly, calling for the Keeper of the Wand. McGonagall, sharp as ever, silenced the talk at once. "No one," she said sternly, "is to go near the lake after dark. The grounds are still being monitored." But her tone, firm though it was, could not hide the flicker of unease in her eyes. Later that day, Harry and Hermione joined McGonagall in her office. The air smelled faintly of ink and old parchment, the scent of centuries of learning. The headmistress stood by the window, her gaze fixed on the distant water. "There have been disturbances," she admitted. "At first I thought it merely the student's imagination, but last night Argus Filch saw the same figure near the shore. He described her as a pale lady, half real, half reflection." Hermione's voice softened. "A ghost?" McGonagall shook her head. "Peeves is certain she isn't one, the bloody baron too. and they know the company of the dead better than any of us. Harry stepped closer. Has anyone gone missing? McGonagall hesitated. A Ravenclaw girl, Eloise Rivers. She went for a walk near the lake yesterday morning and hasn't returned. The mer people say they saw her by the water's edge. And then, nothing. The room fell still. Hermione clutched her book to her chest. So she's gone? Not yet, McGonagall said firmly. But time matters. I would like the three of you to help me look into this. You've faced dark things before, and Hogwarts still holds mysteries none of us fully understand. Harry nodded immediately. We'll find her. As they left the office, Neville's voice trembled slightly. You don't think it's another spirit, do you? Like the Grey Lady? Hermione shook her head. No. This feels older. The Grey Lady's bound to the castle. But this one, she's bound to the lake. That evening, the three made their way down to the shore. The setting sun cast a molten glow across the waters, and the air shimmered with quiet magic. The surface of the lake was glassy, reflecting the castle in perfect stillness. Hermione traced her wand in slow circles above the surface, murmuring detection charms. There's energy here, she said softly. Ancient and deep. It's layered, like wards stacked upon each other. Harry knelt beside her. Could they be from the Founder's time? It's possible, she whispered. Some of Hogwarts' oldest enchantments lie beneath the lake. Salazar Slytherin's chamber wasn't the only secret buried under these waters. Neville pointed suddenly. Look. Across the lake, a shimmer of light rippled through the mist. Slowly, a shape began to form. A woman rising from the depths, her robes gleaming like liquid moonlight. Her hair floated around her as though underwater, though she stood upon the surface. The air grew cold. Her voice, soft and sorrowful, drifted toward them. Where is the keeper of the wand? Then, before any of them could move, the figure dissolved into mist, and the lake went still again, hiding its secrets once more. Harry exhaled, his breath clouding in the air. Well, he murmured, looks like Hogwarts isn't done with us yet. The morning dawned pale and thin, with a fog so dense it muffled even the cries of the owls. By the time the sun lifted over the forbidden forest, the mist had settled low across the grounds, trailing like ghostly fingers over the black lake. Hogwarts, from a distance, looked half swallowed by clouds. Harry, Hermione, and Neville made their way down the stone steps to the lake shore once more, wands at the ready. The dew clung to their cloaks, and the air was chill enough to sting the lungs. No students were allowed outside yet. McGonagall had made that clear, but she had given the trio permission to investigate before lessons began. Hermione knelt near the water's edge, brushing her fingers over the damp grass. There's frost here, she murmured, but it hasn't been cold enough for frost. It's some sort of magical residue. From her? Neville asked, his voice hushed, as though the lake itself were listening. Hermione nodded. Or from whatever binds her here. Harry scanned the surface of the lake. It was perfectly still again. Too still. She said something about a keeper of the wand, he said. What wand could she mean? The Elder Wand? Hermione frowned. That wand's power was laid to rest when you buried it with Dumbledore, wasn't it? Besides, she didn't say Elder Wand. She said keeper. That sounds like a title, not a person. Before they could puzzle it further, a sound reached them, a faint, rhythmic tapping from beneath the water. It was distant but distinct, like the echo of stone against stone. Neville stiffened. That's coming from deep down, he whispered. Harry crouched closer to the water. The tapping grew louder for a moment, then stopped altogether, leaving behind only the soft lapping of the waves. And then quite suddenly, something floated to the surface, a small, gleaming object that caught the first light of morning. Hermione reached out and drew it gently from the water. It was a pendant, its chain broken, its charm shaped like a silver teardrop with a rune carved into its face. The rune shimmered faintly blue. "It's old," she murmured. "Centuries old. This isn't student jewelry." Neville peered closer. "Do you think it belonged to Eloise?" Hermione shook her head. "No. This metal, it's goblin-made, but enchanted differently. Look here. This rune isn't from any modern language. It's from the old tongue, the one Merlin used in his writings." Harry straightened. "Then this isn't just a haunting. Someone, or something, stirred something ancient." Before they could say more, a ripple shuddered across the lake, followed by a low, mournful sound, like the toll of a bell underwater. The three took an instinctive step back. The lake darkened, its silvery surface clouding over. A moment later, a hand broke through the water, a pale, slender hand that shone faintly blue in the misty light. It was followed by the shape of the lady once more, her form rising slowly, her eyes closed as though in sleep. When she spoke, her voice was both near and far, echoing from the depths below. "Who disturbs the keeper's watch?" Harry raised his wand, though he did not point it. "We mean no harm. A student has gone missing. We only want to find her." The lady's eyes opened then, eyes like silver pools without pupils. She regarded them with an unreadable calm. "She sought what was never hers," the lady whispered. "She followed whispers through the reeds, thinking the keeper would show her the wand. But the keeper guards, and guard she must. None may claim what was Merlin's." Hermione's voice trembled slightly. "Merlin's wand?" The lady inclined her head slowly. "A fragment only, yet potent still. The staff was broken long ago, and one piece lies in my keeping, beneath the waters, bound by oath and by grief." Harry stepped forward, the wind stirring his cloak. "And Eloise? Is she still alive?" The lady's face softened with something like sorrow. "She lingers between worlds. I hold her until the keeper's balance is restored. Release cannot be given until the oath is ended." "Then tell us how to end it," Harry said. But the lady only looked toward the horizon, where the first rays of sun touched the mist. "Seek the heir of the serpent," she murmured. "He has broken the seal. When the seal is mended, the lady may sleep." Then her image began to dissolve once more, the light in her eyes fading as her body sank back beneath the surface. The lake stilled, and the morning was silent once more. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Finally, Hermione exhaled. "The heir of the serpent. That can't mean—" "Slytherin," Neville finished grimly. "It always comes back to him." They returned to the castle at a hurried pace. By the time they reached the entrance hall, the first students were filing in for breakfast, their chatter rising and falling like the distant hum of bees. McGonagall met them at the door, her expression sharp. "Well?" she demanded. Harry wasted no time. "We saw her again. She's real. She called herself the Keeper. She's guarding a fragment of Merlin's staff under the lake. And she said someone, the heir of the serpent, broke a seal." McGonagall's lips thinned. "Heir of the serpent? You're suggesting there's another Slytherin descendant active at the school?" Hermione hesitated. It's possible. There have always been families claiming descent from Salazar Slytherin. But if someone found a way to disturb the old magic beneath the lake, Neville swallowed, then Eloise might have been caught in it. McGonagall's gaze darkened. I will begin a quiet inquiry among the Slytherins. You three, continue your investigation discreetly. I do not wish to alarm the school. That afternoon, the trio gathered in the library. Piles of dusty tomes surrounded them, most written in old script. Hermione read aloud from one particularly ancient volume titled Relics of the First Age of Magic. Here, she said, tapping the page. Merlin's staff was said to have been shattered by his own hand to prevent its power from being misused. The fragments were hidden across Britain, one beneath a mountain, one within a forest, and one beneath a lake. Harry leaned closer. So the lady is real. She's been guarding it for centuries. Neville frowned. But why now? Why appear after all this time? Hermione turned another page. Because the seal was broken. Someone disturbed the magic that binds her, and the staff fragment. Harry stood, pacing slowly. Then we have to find out who. If there really is an heir of Slytherin still at Hogwarts, this isn't just a haunting, it's a threat. At that moment, a soft whoosh of air made them all turn. An envelope had appeared on the table, delivered by no owl and bearing no name. Only a wax seal marked with a serpent coiled around a wand. Harry broke it open. Inside, in elegant green ink, were 5 words. Meet me by the lake tonight. There was no signature. The air seemed to grow colder around them. Hermione's voice was barely above a whisper. Someone knows we're looking. Harry closed the note, his jaw set. Then tonight, we find out who. Night descended over Hogwarts like a dark curtain, heavy and soundless. The lake, so serene in daylight, had turned into a black mirror, its surface reflecting the moon like a single unblinking eye. The castle lights flickered softly across the grounds, but beyond their reach, shadows gathered deep and thick, whispering against the stillness. Harry, Hermione, and Neville waited by the shore, hidden beneath a copse of willows that bent low over the water. The letter lay folded in Harry's pocket, its serpent seal faintly gleaming even without light. The air was sharp, tinged with damp earth and the faint scent of algae. Whoever sent that note, Hermione murmured, wanted us alone. Which means, said Neville quietly, they're either desperate or dangerous. Harry's eyes stayed fixed on the water. Either way, we'll find out soon. The wind stirred the reeds. The lake's surface trembled faintly, as though something vast had shifted beneath it. A few yards away, the giant squid broke the surface for a brief moment, one long tentacle curling upward, before sliding silently back into the depths. The creature had been restless of late, moving oddly near the northern shallows. Hermione cast a charm for silence, then another for concealment. No sense being spotted by whoever this is. Moments passed, long, drawn-out moments, filled with the pulse of their own heartbeats and the faint lap of waves on the shore. Then came a sound, footsteps, light and deliberate, crunching softly over the wet pebbles. Out of the mist stepped a tall figure, cloaked in green. His hood was drawn low, his wand held loosely at his side. He moved with confidence, yet his eyes, cold gray beneath the hood's shadow, flicked warily across the lake. Harry's grip tightened on his wand. The figure stopped at the water's edge and spoke in a low voice that carried across the still air. I know you're there, Potter. Come out. There's no point in hiding. Hermione and Neville looked to Harry. He nodded once, lowered the concealment charm, and stepped forward into the moonlight. "Who are you?" he demanded. The figure's hood tilted slightly. "A friend, or an enemy, depending on whether you listen. Then start talking," Harry said. The stranger lowered his hood. He was young, no older than Harry himself, with pale hair and sharp, angular features. A silver serpent brooch fastened his cloak at the shoulder. "My name is Lysander Selwyn," he said. "My family served Slytherin's line for generations. And before you ask, yes, I am the one the lady spoke of." "The heir of the serpent," Hermione breathed. Lysander's lips curved faintly. "Titles are for old men and ghosts. I am simply one who has inherited a burden." Neville took a cautious step forward. "You broke the seal under the lake, didn't you?" "I did," said Lysander, "but not out of greed as you think. The seal was decaying on its own. The lady's power was faltering. I sought to mend it, but the wards turned against me. Something ancient awoke beneath the waters. Something that does not wish the keeper's watch to end." Hermione's brow furrowed. "Then why summon us?" "Because you've already seen her," Lysander said. "And because she listens to you. The lady has grown, divided. Her duty binds her, but her sorrow drives her to madness. The student, Eloise, she was taken as a vessel. If we do nothing, the lady will draw her spirit fully into the lake, and she will never return." Harry's heart clenched. "Then we get her out." "You cannot simply dive beneath the waters," Lysander said sharply. "The lake's depths are bound by old magic, Merlin's magic. There are layers of enchantments, barriers woven through centuries, but there's one path still open through the mirror arch." "The what?" Neville asked. Lysander knelt and touched his wand to the wet soil. A shimmer appeared, faint and silver, a ghostly outline of an archway, half buried in the sand by the water's edge. "Here." The mirror arch was once a portal between the surface and the deep sanctum where the relic rests. The founders sealed it when the lady took her vow. I reopened it, but it can only be crossed by 3. Hermione's eyes darted toward Harry. 3? Lysander nodded. "The lady demands balance, light, knowledge, and earth. The same virtues the founders built this school upon. One must bear courage, one wisdom, and one loyalty to the living world. Only together can you reach her sanctum." Harry didn't hesitate. "Then it's us. Hermione for wisdom, Neville for loyalty, and I'll take courage." Lysander looked at him, his expression unreadable. "Then you must move swiftly. At dawn, the lady's binding will complete. After that, nothing mortal can reach her again." Hermione stepped forward. "And you? What will you do?" Lysander's gaze flickered toward the lake. "Hold the seal above while you cross. But make no mistake, Potter, the power beneath that water is not entirely hers. Something else stirs there. Something older than Hogwarts itself." Before they could question him further, the air shimmered. The archway began to glow with a pale liquid light. The water nearby rippled outward, and the sound of faint bells echoed from the depths. Harry turned to his friends. "Ready?" Neville's voice was tight but steady. "As I'll ever be." Hermione nodded once, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "Together." The 3 stepped toward the arch. The moment they crossed beneath it, a rush of cold engulfed them. The world twisted, light and shadow merging, water folding around their forms. For a heartbeat, they could not breathe, nor see, nor hear. Then, suddenly, the darkness broke. They stood in a vast, submerged chamber, illuminated by drifting orbs of blue light. The ceiling was lost in darkness, the walls carved with runes that glowed faintly beneath layers of moss. In the center of the chamber rose a great stone altar, half swallowed by roots that pulsed faintly with magic. And there, floating just above it, was Eloise Rivers. Her body was suspended as the weightless, her eyes closed, her hair drifting like pale seaweed in the airless current. Around her, the ghostly form of the lady shimmered, her hands outstretched in a gesture both tender and possessive. "She's still alive," Hermione whispered. "But bound," Neville said softly. Harry stepped forward, his wand raised. "We're getting her out." The lady's gaze turned toward them then. No longer serene, her eyes burned with a fierce, stormy light. "You should not have come," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber like 1,000 whispers. "The oath must hold. The keeper cannot rest. The seal must remain." Harry stood firm. "You don't need to keep her. Let the girl go, and we'll help you mend the seal." The lady's expression wavered, a flicker of anguish breaking through the icy calm. "You do not understand. I am bound to the relic. Without me, it wakes. Without her, it breaks. The staff remembers its master." Hermione's eyes widened. "Merlin's staff? It's alive?" The lady's voice trembled. "It was forged from his own heartwood, his magic, his will. To guard it is to feed it, to hold it sleeping. But if it stirs again, the world of wizards and the world of men will bleed together once more." Harry glanced at his friends. "Then we end this. For her and for Hogwarts." He lifted his wand, and the blue light of the chamber began to shimmer like the heartbeat of something vast and waiting beneath them. The lady's sorrow turned to fury. "Then you defy the keeper." The waters roared to life. The chamber shook, the runes blazing as ancient power surged through the walls, and the battle for the depths began. The chamber trembled as if the lake itself had awoken in rage. Water cascaded down from cracks high above, swirling in torrents that seemed to defy gravity, dancing like serpents of silver light. The lady rose higher above the altar, her robes unfurling in waves of mist, her eyes twin moons blazing with power. "Leave this place," she cried, her voice echoing through the stone like a spell. "You know not what you awaken." But Harry did not move. He stood firm, wand alight, his hair plastered to his forehead by the spray. "We came to free her, and we're not leaving without her." The lady's face twisted in sorrow and fury. Around her, the runes carved into the walls flared to life, filling the chamber with streams of pale light that writhed like living things. The water thickened, and in an instant shapes began to form within it. Warriors made of mist and foam, their eyes empty and their swords shimmering with ancient magic. Hermione shouted over the roar of the water. "They're guardians, echoes of her vow." Neville raised his wand, the light trembling in his hand. "Then we fight." The first of the guardians surged forward, its blade cleaving the air with a sound like thunder. Harry blocked the strike with a spell, Protego Maxima, sparks of blue light exploding across the chamber. Neville sent a burst of flames from his wand, the fire twisting oddly underwater, but it was enough to drive the specter back into the mist. Hermione was already at work, her voice quick and clear as she chanted a series of ancient incantations, her wand tracing runes in the air that shimmered and burned. "The binding runes? If we break the circle around Eloise, we can weaken the lady's hold. Harry nodded, deflecting another blow. Do it. I'll keep her busy. He darted forward, splashing through the rising waters, each step sending ripples through the glowing surface. The lady's gaze fixed on him. You bear the courage of the lion, she whispered, sorrowful yet resolute. But courage alone cannot break the chains of time. She raised her hand, and from the depths below, a current surged upward, forming a twisting vortex that wrapped around Harry like a serpent. The force of it lifted him from the ground, choking, spinning, crushing. He struggled for breath, his wand still clenched in his hand. Finite incantatem, he gasped, slashing his wand through the current. The spell flared with white light, breaking the vortex long enough for him to fall back to the flooded floor. Neville caught his arm, steadying him. You all right? Harry nodded, though his lungs burned. We're running out of time. Across the chamber, Hermione's eyes flashed. I've almost got it. Keep her away from the altar. The lady's form flickered, her features contorting as if two selves warred within her. You do not understand, she whispered again. To free her is to unbind the relic. The power within the staff will rise, and it will not be tamed. Then we'll contain it, Hermione shouted back, but not at the cost of a child's life. The lady's sorrow deepened, and she extended her hand toward Eloise, whose body began to glow faintly with the same blue light as the runes. It is too late, she said. She is part of the seal now. No, Harry said fiercely, stepping between them. You made an oath to protect, not to destroy. Remember who you are. The lady faltered. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. The guardians wavered, their forms rippling uncertainly. Hermione seized at the moment. She drew a deep breath, thrust her wand toward the altar, and cried, Rupio sigillum. The runes around Eloise blazed white, then shattered like glass. A blast of force hurled Hermione backward, her robes whipping in the current, but the circle was broken. Eloise fell limp, the glow fading from her skin. Harry rushed forward and caught her before she could sink. She was cold, but breathing. Alive, relief surged through him like fire, but then the water changed. The chamber shuddered as a deep sound rose from below, a low, thunderous hum that felt alive. The lady's face went pale. You have undone the seal, she whispered. Now it wakes. The altar split down the center with a grinding sound, and from the crack emerged a shaft of light, blinding, golden, and terrible. Within it something glimmered, a fragment of polished wood, dark as night and veined with silver. It pulsed like a heart, sending waves of raw power through the chamber. Neville stumbled backward. That's it! That's Merlin's staff! The lady cried out, her form wavering, dissolving at the edges. It cannot remain awake. You must bind it again, or it will consume us all. Hermione pulled herself up, soaked and trembling. We can't seal it without an anchor. The lady's dying. There's no one left to guard it. Harry stared at the glowing fragment. Its light was mesmerizing, its power intoxicating. He could feel it calling, reaching toward him like a whisper in his mind. You could take it, wield it, mend the world that's broken. Harry! Hermione's voice cut through the trance. Don't touch it. He blinked, shaking his head. There has to be another way. Lysander's voice echoed suddenly through the chamber. He appeared at the archway, his green cloak tattered, his wand alight. There is a way, but it will cost her. He gestured toward the lady. Her image flickered like a dying flame. She must bind herself to it one last time, fully, without return. Her spirit will cease, but the relic will sleep." The lady turned to him, her gaze soft. "You knew this would be my fate." "I did," Lysander said quietly, "but I could not force it. Only you could choose." She looked to Harry then, her eyes filled with light and shadow. "Would you bear witness, heir of the lion?" Harry nodded, his throat tight. "If this is the only way," the lady smiled faintly, "then let the lake remember me kindly." She drifted toward the fragment, her hands glowing brighter than the light itself. She whispered in a tongue none of them understood, a language that felt older than magic itself. As she touched the staff, the light flared so fiercely they had to shield their eyes. When it faded, the lady was gone. Only the still, dim glow of the relic remained, slowly dimming until it was no more than a faint ember within the stone. Silence fell over the chamber, the waters calmed. Hermione sank to her knees, her chest heaving. "She's gone." Neville looked at Eloise, still unconscious but breathing. "But she's alive." Lysander walked to the altar, his expression solemn. "Her oath is fulfilled. The Lady of the Lake rests at last." Harry stared into the still waters. A faint shimmer lingered, no more than a ghost of light. "Then it's over." Lysander turned to him. "Not entirely. The seal will hold, but only for a time. The magic beneath Hogwarts is ancient and restless. Someday someone will need to stand guard again." Harry met his gaze. "Then let's make sure that day is a long way off." They carried Eloise back through the archway, the chamber fading behind them like a dream. The dawn was breaking when they emerged upon the lake shore, the mist dissolving into pale gold. For a long while they stood in silence, watching the sun rise over the castle's towers. The lake was calm once more, its surface smooth as glass. Hermione touched Harry's arm. "Do you think she's still there, watching?" Harry nodded slowly. "I think she finally found peace." As the first light of morning struck the water, a soft ripple spread across its surface. For an instant it gleamed, not silver but gold, like sunlight caught in the depths. And somewhere beneath the calm, a voice no louder than a sigh whispered into the stillness. "The keeper sleeps." For several days Hogwarts seemed wrapped in a hush, as though the castle itself mourned the passing of the lady. The mist that so often drifted across the lake in the mornings had vanished, leaving the waters clear and still. Yet at night, when the moon rose, faint rings of silver could be seen spreading outward from the center, quiet reminders that something vast and ancient still slumbered beneath. Eloise Rivers awoke 2 days later in the hospital wing, weak but alive. Madame Pomfrey hovered near her bed, tutting as she always did, while Hermione read aloud softly from Hogwarts, a history, more to soothe herself than the girl. Eloise's first words were faint, her voice cracked from disuse. "The water. She sang to me." Hermione's quill paused above her parchment. "You remember?" Eloise nodded slightly. "I followed the sound. It was beautiful and sad. I thought it was calling for help." Her eyes clouded. "Then everything went dark, and I saw her. The lady? She wasn't angry, not at first. She asked my name, and when I told her, she said it was a name she had known long ago. Then she began to cry." Hermione's brow furrowed. "Did she say anything else?" "She said the keeper must rest. And then she touched my hand." Eloise's voice faltered. "I thought I was dreaming." Hermione reached over and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You were very brave. Rest now. You're safe." As the girl drifted back into sleep, Hermione rose and crossed to the window. The lake shimmered faintly under the afternoon sun. She knew it was no dream. The lady had chosen her, perhaps not by accident, but by blood or spirit. One more thread woven into Hogwarts' endless tapestry of secrets. Elsewhere, Harry and Neville sat with Professor McGonagall in her office. The old phoenix statue stood beside the door, its golden eyes gleaming softly as they spoke. McGonagall listened in silence while Harry recounted every detail of their descent beneath the lake, the mirror arch, the guardians, the awakening of the staff, and the lady's final sacrifice. When he finished, McGonagall clasped her hands and stared at the desk for a long moment. "Merlin's staff," she said quietly. "I had heard of it in old tales. That a fragment lay beneath Hogwarts explains much about the lake's enchantments. It is older than we ever guessed." Neville nodded. Lysander Selwyn said the seal would hold for now, but not forever. He said the castle's magic is restless. Restless? McGonagall's sharp eyes flicked to him. "He meant the magic under Hogwarts," Harry said. "It's alive somehow, like it remembers everything that's ever happened here." McGonagall sighed. "That would not surprise me. Hogwarts was founded upon ancient ley lines of magic. Even the founders did not fully understand the powers they bound when they built the castle. And now, after so many centuries..." She gave a weary shake of her head. "Let us hope the lady's rest endures." They rose to leave, but just as Harry reached the door, McGonagall spoke again. "Mr. Potter," he turned, "there are few who would face what you have faced and still choose mercy over victory. The lady's spirit owed her peace. You gave it to her. I thank you." Harry inclined his head a little awkwardly. "I only did what anyone would have done." Her expression softened. "No, Potter, not anyone." Outside, the corridors buzzed faintly with the noise of students returning to lessons, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. To them, Hogwarts was once again safe. To Harry, it felt different, quieter, as if a watchful presence had finally fallen silent. That evening, the trio met again by the lake. The air was cool and fragrant with the scent of wild thyme that grew near the banks. Lysander Selwyn was waiting for them, his green cloak faintly damp, his expression calm but wary. "You kept your word," Harry said, crossing the grass toward him. Lysander inclined his head. "As did you." "The lady's passing has stilled the currents below. For now, the relic sleeps." "For now," Hermione echoed. "But you said the seal won't hold forever." "No magic lasts forever," Lysander said. "Not even Merlin's. But centuries may pass before it stirs again. Perhaps by then the world will be wiser." Neville gave a quiet snort. "Let's hope so." Lysander's gaze drifted toward the castle. Hogwarts is more than a school. It is a living archive of all who have walked its halls. Students, teachers, founders, and ghosts. The lady's memory will join theirs. He looked to Harry then, his eyes cool and measured. "You have done what many could not. You freed her without claiming the relic's power for yourself." Harry shrugged. "It wasn't mine to take." A faint smile touched Lysander's lips, spoken like a true keeper. Before Harry could reply, Lysander reached into his cloak and drew out the silver pendant Hermione had found in the water, the teardrop charm marked with an ancient rune. "You should have this," he said. "The rune upon it is not merely decorative, it is a sigil of binding and memory. It marks those who have touched the relic's fate." Hermione hesitated, then took it. The metal was cool and strangely heavy in her hand. "Thank you," she said. Lysander inclined his head once more. I will be leaving Hogwarts. My family's legacy lies too close to the serpent's shadow. But perhaps one day our paths will cross again. Without another word, he turned and vanished into the gathering dusk, his cloak fading into the trees beyond the shore. For a while, none of them spoke. The water lapped softly against the stones, the sound almost like breathing. Then Neville said, "Do you think he'll come back?" Harry's eyes stayed on the dark water. "People like him always do, when the time calls." Hermione slipped the pendant into her pocket. "Then let's hope that time never comes." They lingered there until the stars came out, their reflections scattered like shards of glass upon the lake's calm surface. Somewhere beneath, deep and far beyond sight, the fragment of Merlin's staff pulsed faintly in its sleep. That night, Harry dreamed. He stood once more upon the lake's edge, the water perfectly still. The moon hung low, enormous and white. From its reflection, a figure rose, not the lady, but a shadow of her memory, woven from moonlight and mist. She looked at him with a quiet, eternal calm. "Keeper," she said softly. Harry's throat tightened. "You're free." She inclined her head. "Freedom and duty are not so different. The lake sleeps, but it remembers. When the seal trembles again, the wand's bearer will be called. Perhaps not you, perhaps another, but the choice will always return." The surface rippled. The lady's form began to fade. "Will we meet again?" he asked. "Every reflection remembers the sky," she whispered, "and every keeper leaves their light upon the water." When Harry woke, dawn was spilling across the windows of the Gryffindor Tower. He rose quietly, crossing to the window. The lake shimmered in the morning sun, peaceful, untouched, yet gleaming faintly gold where the light met the waves. Hermione stirred in the armchair by the fire, where she'd fallen asleep over her books. Neville snored softly from the couch, Trevor croaking lazily beside him. Harry smiled faintly. For the first time in a long while, Hogwarts felt whole again. Outside, the giant squid surfaced briefly, one tentacle lifting in the light as though in salute. Then it sank once more into the depths. The castle stirred to life around him, owls sweeping through the rafters, voices rising from the corridors, the smell of breakfast drifting up from the great hall. Life, as always, continued, and though few would ever know what had been lost and saved beneath the lake, Harry would carry the memory of the lady always, her sorrow, her courage, and the peace she had finally found. For some mysteries, he realized, were not meant to be solved. They were meant to be remembered. As he turned from the window, a single ray of sunlight broke through the glass, glancing off Hermione's desk. There, beside her books, the silver pendant gleamed faintly, its rune glowing for just an instant, before fading once more into stillness. Far below, the waters of the Black Lake shimmered like a mirror, calm and eternal. And deep beneath that tranquil surface, a faint voice echoed through the silence of the ages. "The Keeper endures." Winter descended upon Hogwarts with quiet grace. Frost glazed the stone battlements, and the Black Lake mirrored the pale sky like a sheet of polished glass. The wind carried the scent of pine and cold iron, and the castle, draped in snow, seemed both older and more alive than ever, its windows glowing like the eyes of an ancient beast sleeping beneath the mountains. Classes resumed, life returning to its familiar rhythm, but for Harry, Hermione, and Neville, the peace felt fragile. Though the Lady of the Lake had found her rest, a sense of unfinished magic lingered. The water, once so restless, was now still, yet it shimmered faintly at dawn and dusk, as if Light from another world gleamed beneath its surface. One evening, as the snow fell in lazy spirals, Hermione appeared in the common room with a book so old it seemed to breathe dust with every page she turned. Harry, seated by the fire, looked up as she laid it on the table. "I found this in the restricted section," she said, lowering her voice. "It's called The Chronicles of the First Circle. It mentions the founders, not just as builders of Hogwarts, but as wardens of a much older magic." Neville leaned forward. "Older than Hogwarts?" "Much older," Hermione replied. "According to this, each founder was entrusted with guarding a relic of Merlin's creation. The staff fragment beneath the lake was only one of 4. Harry frowned. 4? She nodded. The others were hidden across the land, each one bound to a guardian. The lady was one, the others... She hesitated, tracing the faded ink with her finger. One in the north, one in the forest, and one beneath a place of fire. It says that when one relic stirs, the others may follow. Harry's stomach tightened. "You think the lady's awakening might have woken the rest?" "It's possible," she said. "Magic that old doesn't stay silent once disturbed." Neville rubbed his hands together, his breath misting in the firelight. "Do you think the professors know?" Hermione shook her head. "If they did, they'd never admit it. Some things are too dangerous even to name." The flames crackled between them. Snow tapped gently against the windows. For a while none spoke. Each of them could feel it, the quiet shift in the world's balance, the slow turning of an unseen wheel. A week later, their fears began to take shape. It started with a tremor. One morning, as breakfast echoed through the great hall, the floor shuddered briefly beneath the students' feet. The enchanted ceiling flickered, showing not the winter sky but flashes of fire, orange and crimson streaking like the breath of a dragon. Then, just as suddenly, it was gone. McGonagall rose from the staff table, her face pale. "Remain seated," she commanded, her voice steady despite the alarm spreading through the room. "There is no danger. The wards merely shifted." But Harry met Hermione's eyes across the table, and both knew it was no ordinary disturbance. Later that day, they climbed the spiral stairs to the astronomy tower, where the world stretched cold and endless below them. The lake shimmered faintly in the distance, but it was the mountains to the north that caught Harry's eye. A strange glow pulsed there, faint but steady, a golden fire burning against the snow. Hermione followed his gaze. "That's not natural light." Neville swallowed. "You think it's one of the other relics?" Harry's answer was quiet. "I think the lady's warning wasn't the end, it was the beginning." They agreed to speak with McGonagall that evening, but, as fate often chose, Hogwarts had its own designs. As they descended the tower stairs, the shadows shifted around them. The torches flickered blue, their flames stretching thin and whispering like wind through reeds. Then, without warning, a figure stepped from the dark, a shape, half shadow, half flame. Harry's wand was in his hand before he could think. "Show yourself." The figure obeyed. It was Lysander Selwyn. His cloak was torn, his eyes hollow with exhaustion, but his presence was unmistakable. "Selwyn?" Hermione gasped. "What are you doing here? We thought you'd left." "I tried," he said, his voice hoarse, "but the lake called me back. Something's stirring beneath the wards. The lady's rest is broken." Harry stared at him. "That's not possible. She sacrificed herself." "I know," Lysander said sharply, "but the seal she formed has fractured. I felt it, the pulse of the relic beneath the lake. The others are answering it." Hermione's face paled. "So it's true." Lysander drew from his cloak a small crystal orb, faintly glowing with blue fire. This was found at the edge of the lake this morning. The merfolk brought it to me. It bears the lady's sigil. He placed it in Harry's hand. The orb was cold and thrummed faintly, as if something inside it was trying to speak. Then softly, a voice whispered through the air, not from the orb, but from everywhere at once. The circle breaks. The fire wakes. Neville took an uneasy step back. What does that mean? Hermione's mind raced. If the lake is water, then fire. The relic beneath the mountain must be awakening next. Lysander nodded grimly. The relics were meant to balance the elements. When one is disturbed, the others must rise to restore equilibrium. But too much imbalance, too much awakening, and the magic that binds them could unravel entirely. Harry's eyes darkened. And if it does? The magic of Merlin will return uncontrolled, Lysander said. Raw creation, unbound by will or wisdom. The world would not survive it. A silence fell between them. The wind outside howled across the tower, carrying with it the distant cry of an owl. Finally, Harry spoke. Then we have to find the next relic before it wakes. Hermione nodded. The north. The glow we saw, it has to be there. Neville looked from one to the other, his voice trembling slightly. But if the lady's seal is breaking, doesn't that mean the lake isn't safe either? Lysander's expression was grim. The relic may not rise again immediately, but the waters are uneasy. The lady's sacrifice gave us time. Nothing more. Harry closed his fingers around the orb, feeling its faint pulse. Then time is what we'll use. That night, as snow blanketed the grounds, they prepared to leave. McGonagall, when told, tried to forbid it, her words sharp, but her eyes full of worry. Yet she knew the truth as they did. Hogwarts' fate was bound to theirs. By dawn, the trio and Lysander stood once more at the edge of the Black Lake. The surface was smooth as glass, but beneath it a faint golden flicker pulsed like a heartbeat. Harry looked out over the water, his breath a mist in the cold. She gave everything to protect this place. We owe it to her not to fail. Hermione placed a hand on his arm. We won't. Whatever's waiting for us out there, we'll face it together. Neville smiled faintly, though his eyes held fear, just like always. As they turned toward the forest path that wound northward, the first light of dawn broke across the mountains. The glow in the distance flared once more, bright enough to stain the snow gold. Behind them, unseen beneath the lake's frozen surface, the faintest echo of a voice stirred, a whisper too soft to hear, yet full of knowing. The keeper walks, the flame awaits. And so began their next journey into the frozen north and the heart of Merlin's second secret, where fire, long forgotten, waited to be reborn. The journey north began beneath a sky of ice and gold. Snow fell in soft, whispering sheets as the four travelers, Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Lysander, left the safety of Hogwarts' ancient gates behind them. The castle's towers faded slowly into the mist, their lights dimming like stars swallowed by dawn. Ahead stretched the highlands, silent, white, and endless. They traveled on broomsticks for part of the way, gliding above frozen forests and rivers sheathed in crystal. But when the winds grew too fierce, they descended to the ground. The air was bitter enough to bite through wool and charm alike. Hermione's protective spells shimmered faintly around them, a thin veil against the cold. For 2 days they followed the trail of light that glowed faintly in the northern sky, a steady pulse like the heartbeat of something ancient. At night, they made camp among snow-laden pines, the fire crackling low while shadows danced across the drifts. Lysander kept mostly to himself, his gaze always fixed northward. Once, Neville caught him tracing runes into the snow beside the fire, old symbols that glimmered faintly before fading. "What are those?" Neville asked. "Bindings," Lysander replied without looking up, "to keep what sleeps from stirring too soon." Hermione frowned. "You think the relic is already waking?" "I think," said Lysander softly, "that it never truly slept." On the third morning the storm broke. The sky cleared, and there before them rose the mountains, tall and jagged, their peaks crowned with white flame. It was not real fire, but light, golden and shifting, that flowed like liquid down the ridges. Hermione shielded her eyes. "That's no natural glow. It's reacting to the relic." Harry felt it too, a low hum in his chest, like the pulse of the lake, but fiercer, sharper. The closer they came, the stronger it grew. By nightfall, they reached a valley carved between two cliffs. At its center lay an ancient ruin, half buried in ice, a ring of standing stones, etched with sigils that gleamed faintly beneath the snow. In the midst of them, a blackened pit exhaled curls of heat, and within it burned a single golden ember, bright as a star fallen to earth. They stepped cautiously into the circle. The warmth was immediate, washing over them in waves. The snow around the stones had melted into dark pools of water that steamed in the cold air. Hermione knelt beside the nearest stone, brushing away frost. "These markings, they're the same as the ones beneath the lake, only older." Lysander's voice was low, reverent. "This is the Forge of Fire. It is said Merlin once built it to temper his staff, to bind flame to wood. When he broke the staff, the fire was sealed here, kept by its guardian." Neville looked around warily. "And where's the guardian now?" Lysander's reply was quiet. "That is what we must find out." As if in answer, the ground trembled. The ember at the center of the pit flared, spilling out a wave of heat so fierce they staggered back. From the light, a voice rose, deep and resonant, like thunder trapped within stone. "Who dares trespass upon the Keeper's flame?" The air shimmered. From the heart of the fire, a shape emerged, a figure wrought entirely from golden flame, tall and terrible. Its eyes were molten, its form shifting like the blaze of a forge. Harry raised his wand. "We mean no harm. We came to stop the relics from awakening." The figure's laughter echoed like cracking wood. "Stop them? Foolish child. The circle of elements cannot be stopped. It completes itself. The water has yielded its keeper's soul. Now the fire seeks its own." Hermione's voice trembled. "You're the next guardian, the keeper of fire." "I was," the being said, its tone like sorrow wrapped in flame. "Long ago. But the bond weakens. The flame yearns for flesh once more. It must find a bearer, or it will burn the world to ash." Harry exchanged a look with Lysander. "Then we have to contain it, like the lady did. There must be a way to bind it again." The being's fire flared higher. "Only the worthy may bear the flame, one whose heart burns not for power, but for purpose." Before anyone could speak, the fire surged outward, engulfing the circle in light. Each of them was thrown backward as the blaze rose skyward, twisting and writhing until it split into 4 streams of golden fire, each striking them in turn. Harry gasped as the heat pierced him, not burning, but blazing through his mind. He saw visions of the lady sinking beneath the lake, of a great staff shattering into 4, of Merlin himself, standing at the heart of a storm. His eyes filled with grief. Then the vision changed. He saw the world in ruin, mountains burning, rivers boiling, the sky torn apart by light. And in the midst of it, the four relics glowed, calling to each other across the dying earth. He fell to his knees, the vision fading, his breath ragged. The fire receded into the pit once more, leaving behind silence and the faint smell of smoke. Hermione knelt beside him. "Harry, what did you see?" He shook his head, still trembling. "The end. If the relics unite, Merlin broke his staff to save the world. If they're joined again, everything will fall apart." Lysander's face was pale. "Then we must keep them apart. Forever." The wind howled through the valley, scattering ash into the snow. Neville stood near the edge of the pit, staring at the ember that still glowed faintly within. "It's smaller now," he said quietly, like it gave up some of its power. Hermione followed his gaze. "Or transferred it to us." They each felt it then, deep within, a warmth that was not merely physical, a spark, subtle yet alive. The relic had touched them, marked them. Lysander looked grim. "It has chosen you, all of you. The flame recognizes those who faced the Water's Keeper. You are bound to the circle now." Harry clenched his fists. "Then we'll finish what Merlin started. We'll stop this before the other relics wake." But the fire being's voice lingered faintly in the wind. A whisper carried over the snow. "The earth stirs. The root remembers. The forest calls the next keeper home." Hermione's eyes widened. "The next relic, the one of earth. It's in the Forbidden Forest." Harry rose slowly, the cold settling once more around them. The wind carried flakes of ash and snow in equal measure, swirling together like water and flame entwined. He looked to his friends. "Then we go back to Hogwarts. The forest is waiting." They turned southward, the mountains fading behind them. The ember in the pit pulsed once, then dimmed, its light folding inward like a closing eye. And as the four travelers vanished into the storm, the wind whispered through the stones, soft, ancient, and full of prophecy. "Four shall stand where one had fallen. Four shall wake what time has hidden. When water meets fire and earth with air, the keeper's circle will close once more." The snow swallowed the words, and silence fell. Yet beneath the frozen ground, the ember glowed faintly, patient and eternal. Its flame would wait until called again. The return to Hogwarts was a long and bitter journey. Winter's grip had strengthened, and the road south was a maze of frozen rivers and forests, wrapped in mist. The wind tore at their cloaks like claws, carrying with it the faint, distant sound of something alive within the storm. The mountains receded behind them, but the memory of fire lingered still, the warmth beneath their skin, the pulse that would not fade. By the time the castle came into view once more, it stood beneath a veil of frost, so thick it glittered like glass. The black lake lay frozen, a perfect mirror of the pale sky. Even from afar, Harry could feel the faint hum beneath its surface, a reminder of what slept below. They crossed the snow-covered grounds in silence, the crunch of their boots, the only sound. As they approached the gates, Professor McGonagall was waiting. Her cloak billowed like dark smoke in the wind, her expression tight. "Where have you been?" she demanded the moment they stepped through the archway. "The school has been in an uproar. Strange lights over the Forbidden Forest, tremors beneath the ground, and, Merlin help us, fire seen in the northern sky." Hermione bowed her head. Professor, it's worse than we thought. The relics, Merlin's relics, they're waking one by one. McGonagall's face paled. Then the lady's sacrifice. Delayed it, Harry said quietly. Nothing more. McGonagall's eyes flashed, but her voice softened. You have meddled in powers beyond any of us, Potter. Yet perhaps you were meant to. Come, the headmistress's study awaits. Inside the castle, warmth replaced the biting cold, though the air seemed heavy, as though the stones themselves held their breath. Portraits whispered as they passed, the old witches and wizards peering out in curiosity and concern. One painting, a tall man in emerald robes, bowed slightly as they hurried by. The old magic stirs again, he murmured. Best tread carefully, children of Hogwarts. When they reached McGonagall's office, the phoenix statue leapt aside, and the door swung open to reveal a sight none of them expected. Standing beside the desk, cloaked in deep green, was Professor Sprout. Her hands were streaked with soil, and her face was grave. "I've been waiting for you," she said. "Something's happening in the Forbidden Forest." Lysander stepped forward. "What kind of something?" Sprout exchanged a look with McGonagall. "The centaurs have sent word. The trees are shifting. Roots are moving of their own accord, and they say the earth hums with a sound that has not been heard in centuries." Hermione's breath caught. "The relic of earth," Sprout nodded slowly. "Yes, whatever you awakened in the north, it's calling to the one that sleeps beneath the forest floor." Harry met McGonagall's gaze. "We have to go there. Tonight." The headmistress hesitated. "The Forbidden Forest is perilous, Potter. Even the centaurs tread warily now, but I suspect you will go whether I forbid it or not." Harry's mouth twitched faintly. "Probably." A long silence followed, and then McGonagall inclined her head. "Very well, take care. And if you encounter what the centaurs speak of, do not try to destroy it. Contain it if you can. Protect Hogwarts at all costs." That night they entered the forest under a moon so pale it cast no shadow. The air was heavy and damp, and the trees stood motionless as sentinels. Only the faint crunch of frost beneath their boots broke the stillness. Deeper they went past familiar glades and streams until the path disappeared entirely. The forest seemed to change around them, the trees growing taller and darker, their trunks twisting like the spines of great beasts. The ground beneath their feet trembled with a slow, steady rhythm, like the beat of a sleeping heart. Neville shivered. "This feels wrong. The forest's alive, but not like it used to be." Hermione cast a detection charm, her wand glowing green. "There's energy everywhere, old, deep, and," she faltered, "angry." They reached a clearing soon after, one Harry knew all too well, the place where years ago he had faced death beneath the silver eyes of a centaur. Now it was different. The ground had split open, a great fissure running through the earth, its depths glowing with a dim golden light. "The relic," Lysander breathed. "It's beneath us." Before they could move closer, figures emerged from the shadows, centaurs, their bows raised, their eyes fierce beneath their dark manes. "Stop where you stand," commanded one. His voice was deep as thunder. "The heart of the forest does not welcome trespassers." Harry lowered his wand. "We don't come to harm it. We came to protect it." The centaur stepped forward, his hooves sinking into the frost. "Protect it? You are too late, human. The stone keeper stirs. The earth remembers the flame." Hermione spoke quickly. "Then you've seen it? The relic?" "The relic is no stone," the centaur said. "It is a seed, a heart of the world, planted when Hogwarts was young. It has slept since the founders walked these woods, but now its roots rise to drink the fire you have woken." The ground quaked as if to prove his words. Trees groaned, their roots tearing free of the soil, twisting and writhing like serpents. The air filled with the scent of damp earth and old power. Lysander raised his wand. "We need to bind it before it spreads. If the relic joins with the fire's essence, it'll become unstoppable." Harry turned to the centaur. "Help us then. You know this forest better than anyone." The centaur's gaze was unreadable. "The forest helps no one, but it may decide to spare those who fight with respect." Another tremor shook the clearing. From the fissure burst a shaft of green-gold light, blinding and pure. The roots writhed faster, curling around the stones, reaching toward the sky. Hermione's voice rang out above the chaos. "We need to seal it, like before. Lysander, form the runes. Neville, hold the roots back." Neville's wand blazed as he sent bursts of light into the soil, forcing the writhing tendrils to retreat. Hermione began tracing runes in the air, her incantations blending with the hum of the earth itself. Lysander knelt, pressing his palms to the ground, his voice low and steady as he chanted in the old tongue. The green light pulsed faster, brighter, until it shattered into thousands of fragments that rained down like sparks. From within the fissure rose a figure, tall and earthen, its body made of soil and stone, its eyes glowing emerald. "The Keeper of Earth," Lysander whispered. The figure's voice was slow, resonant. The circle turns once more, the fire wakes, the water mourns, and now the root must rise. Harry stood his ground. "We came to stop it, to protect Hogwarts." The being looked down upon him. "You cannot stop what was begun when the staff was broken. You can only choose how it ends." The air thickened with power. The forest itself seemed to lean closer, listening. The centaurs backed away, their boughs lowered, as if even they dared not challenge what had risen. Hermione's voice trembled. "What do you want from us?" The being's gaze softened, and for a heartbeat it seemed almost human. "Balance. The circle must be completed, or the world will crumble. When the wind answers the stone, the staff will be whole again." With that, the ground gave way beneath them. Harry shouted as they fell, swallowed by light and sound and earth. When he opened his eyes again, they were no longer in the forest. They stood in a cavern deep beneath Hogwarts, the air thick with the scent of soil and old magic. Before them, rising from the heart of the earth, a crystal root pulsed with green fire, and beneath its glow, a faint whisper echoed, soft as a sigh. "The air stirs next." When Harry opened his eyes, he found himself lying upon smooth stone that pulsed faintly with a green light. Around him stretched a vast cavern, roots twisting through the walls like veins of a living thing. The air was warm and heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient growth. Drops of water fell from the ceiling, each echoing softly as it struck the ground. Hermione stirred beside him, her hair matted with soil, her wand clutched tightly in her hand. "Where are we?" she whispered. Neville's voice came from the shadows. "Still beneath the forest, I think, though Merlin only knows how deep." Lysander knelt nearby, his cloak torn, one hand pressed against the floor. His expression was distant, as though listening to something only he could hear. "This place, it isn't just underground, it's beneath the roots of Hogwarts itself. The very magic that feeds the school runs through here." Harry pushed himself upright, wincing at the ache in his limbs. The crystal root at the cavern's center still glowed softly, its light casting long shadows that trembled like breath. It rose high into the darkness, disappearing through a jagged crack in the ceiling. "That must be the relic," he said. Hermione nodded slowly. "It's alive. Can you feel it? The magic's not just around us, it's moving through us." Neville looked uneasy. "Feels more like it's watching." They approached the glowing root. Its surface shimmered like glass, but inside it, faint shapes seemed to move. Glimpses of leaves, faces, and memories long forgotten. When Harry reached out, a hum rippled through the cavern, deep and resonant. The air seemed to tighten. A voice rose from within the crystal, low and mournful, as though spoken through the ages. "Children of the castle, why have you come?" The four froze. The voice was not one they recognized, neither male nor female, but something vast and ageless. Harry stepped forward. "We came to protect Hogwarts. The relics are waking. We need to stop them before they destroy everything." "To stop them," the voice murmured. "Or to bind them once more?" Merlin's folly was not his creation. It was his mercy. The world was not meant to sleep so long. Hermione swallowed hard. "Who are you?" "I am the root," the voice replied. "The memory of what was planted when the world was young. I am the voice of the earth that cradled Hogwarts before its walls were raised." Lysander lowered his head, whispering words in the old tongue. The glow within the crystal brightened at the sound, responding as though recognizing its own language. Harry frowned. "If you're the root of Hogwarts magic, then help us stop what's coming. The water and fire relics have already awakened. If they all rise, the world won't survive." The cavern trembled softly. "To halt the circle is to defy its balance. Each element wakes in turn. When all four stand united, the world will remember itself." Hermione's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" The voice seemed to sigh. "Merlin sought to divide what should never have been broken. The staff was the heart of harmony, the bridge between the living and the eternal. When he shattered it, he tore apart the natural order. Now the pieces call to one another, longing to be whole once more." Neville stepped back. "So it's not chaos, it's restoration?" "Balance is not peace," the root replied. "Creation and destruction are one." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. Cracks split the floor, and dust fell from the ceiling in glittering cascades. The green glow flared into blinding gold. Hermione shouted, "It's rising! The relic's losing control!" The cavern filled with sound, a deep, throbbing hum that grew until it became a roar. From the cracks in the stone, thick roots erupted, twisting upward and bursting into blooms of golden light. The air shimmered with the scent of soil and lightning. Lysander raised his wand, shouting words that burned with ancient power. "Terra vinculum." The roots halted midair, trembling as if fighting his command. The glow dimmed slightly. Harry turned to Hermione. "Can we seal it again, like we did with the lady?" Hermione's face was pale. "We can try, but this magic is different. It doesn't want to be sealed, it wants to rise." The voice from the crystal deepened, now more urgent. "Do not bind me again. The circle cannot be halted. You will awaken the air regardless. The wind has already stirred beyond the castle walls." Harry's heart sank. "The air relic, it's already waking." "The sky remembers what it lost," the root said softly. "The wind will seek the flame, and the world will tremble when they meet." A blinding flash followed, and for a moment the cavern vanished in light. When it cleared, they stood once more in the forest, the fissure sealed, the earth calm as if nothing had ever stirred. But the air around them was different, charged, alive, whispering in languages they could not understand. The centaurs had vanished. Only the distant cry of an owl broke the silence. Neville rubbed his temples. "Did we stop it?" Hermione shook her head. "No, the forest released us. It let us go. The relic is still there. It just chose to wait." Lysander knelt, pressing his hand into the soil. The earth was warm beneath the frost. "The root has shifted its magic into us, as the fire did. The circle binds itself through living vessels now." Harry frowned. "Then the air relic will come for us next." A gust of wind swept through the clearing, cold and sharp, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. High above, the clouds moved unnaturally fast, swirling around a distant point above the castle. Hermione followed Harry's gaze. The astronomy tower. Lightning flashed behind the highest spire, though no storm had gathered. Without another word, they ran. Branches clawed at their cloaks as they raced through the forest, the wind rising to a howl. The castle loomed ahead, its towers dark against the storm-lit sky. When they burst through the gates, students were already gathered in the courtyard, staring upward in awe and fear. A spiral of wind circled the astronomy tower, glowing faintly silver. Professor McGonagall stood at the front, her wand raised, her robes whipping in the gale. "Stay back," she shouted. "The wards are unstable." Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Lysander pushed through the crowd. "It's the last relic!" Harry yelled above the roar. "The air! It's waking!" McGonagall turned sharply. "Then stop it, Potter, before it tears the castle apart!" The wind screamed, and the sky split with light. From the heart of the storm, a shape began to form, a figure of pure air, translucent and radiant, its eyes bright as stars. Its voice swept across the grounds like a whisper, carried on every gust. The circle nears completion. The staff remembers. Lightning struck the tower's peak, and the figure's form solidified, a being of swirling mist and light, beautiful and terrible. Hermione shouted, "If it unites with the others—" "I know," Harry said grimly. "It'll end everything." The storm's fury grew. Windows shattered, the lake rippled violently, though frozen, and the ground quaked beneath their feet. The Keeper of Air descended, its gaze fixed upon them. "You bear the marks of water, fire, and earth," it said. "You are bound to the circle. You cannot flee what you have become." Lysander raised his wand. "Then we'll face it." The wind exploded outward, knocking them to their knees. The figure of air extended its hand, and light poured from the sky, flooding the courtyard with radiance. Somewhere in the depths of that blinding brilliance, Harry heard a voice, familiar, distant, and filled with calm. "Courage, Harry. The Keeper's path was never meant to be easy." It was Dumbledore's voice. Then the light consumed everything, and when sight returned, they stood, not in Hogwarts, but upon a boundless plain of stars, the wind whispering the name of Merlin through the silence of eternity. The plain of stars stretched into forever, a sea of silver light and swirling mist. It was neither sky nor ground, but something between, the place where dreams and memory entwined. The air shimmered with whispers, voices echoing faintly in 1,000 forgotten tongues. Harry stood at the center of it, his breath fogging in the cold, starlit air. Around him, Hermione, Neville, and Lysander rose slowly to their feet, their faces pale with awe. The storm was gone. Hogwarts was gone. Above them drifted vast constellations that pulsed like the heartbeat of the universe itself. "Where are we?" Neville asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Lysander's eyes gleamed with reflected light. "We stand within the echo of Merlin's magic, the space between worlds. The relics have drawn us here." Hermione took a hesitant step forward, the ground, or what passed for it, rippling beneath her feet. "The Keeper's realm," she murmured. "It's where the circle began." A low hum filled the air. Then one by one 4 shapes emerged from the mist, each blazing with its own light. Water shimmered blue and silver, fire burned gold, earth glowed deep emerald, air rippled in translucent white. They circled the 4 friends, their light merging, dancing and twisting like living beings. Harry's heart pounded. "They're all here." The lights drew closer until they took form, figures made of their elements, yet shaped like men and women, their eyes infinite and knowing. The Lady of the Lake appeared first, her robes of liquid moonlight flowing around her. Then came the Flame Keeper, tall and fierce, his body flickering like a forge. The Root Guardian stood next, his face carved of stone and moss. Last came the Air Keeper, graceful and terrible, his form woven from mist and lightning. Their voices spoke as one, resonant and solemn. "The circle is restored. The 4 stand once more at the world's heart." Harry raised his wand, though he knew it was useless here. "You're the Keepers. You were meant to guard the relics, not awaken them." The lady's gaze softened. "We did guard them once, but time erodes all things, even oaths. The world forgets its balance, and so the balance must remember the world." Hermione's voice trembled. "You mean to reunite the relics?" The Flame Keeper's fire flared brighter. "It is the only way to heal what was broken." Lysander stepped forward, defiance in his eyes. "If you unite them, you'll destroy everything. The staff's power is too great. It will tear the world apart." The Root Guardian's deep voice rumbled like thunder beneath the earth. "Destruction and creation are one breath. You cannot have life without the soil's decay. The staff will bring the world to balance once more." "Balance?" Harry's voice was hard. "You mean an end?" The Airkeeper regarded him with something like sorrow. "Endings are beginnings, child of courage. The circle must close for the world to breathe again." The stars pulsed faster, their light swirling around the Keepers until the air burned with radiance. The relics hovered above them, 4 fragments of Merlin's staff, glowing brighter than ever before. Hermione shielded her eyes. "They're merging." Harry stepped forward, shouting over the roar. "If Merlin broke them, he had a reason. He saw what their power could do." A 5th voice spoke then, soft, wise, and familiar. "He did." The light shifted. The 4 Keepers bowed their heads. From among them, a new figure emerged, tall, cloaked in starlight, his beard and hair silver as frost. His eyes were calm, filled with endless understanding. "Merlin," Hermione breathed. The ancient wizard smiled faintly. "You have walked the path I once feared to tread. You have seen what the world forgot." Harry's chest tightened. "You broke the staff to stop this, to stop them." Merlin's gaze turned toward the swirling relics above. "I broke it, not to stop them, but to give the world time to grow wise. Magic was young then, raw and hungry. Mankind could not bear its full truth. But centuries have passed. The circle turns again, and the choice must be made anew." Neville's voice shook. "What choice?" "To bind the relics once more, or to destroy them utterly, Merlin said. If they are bound, the world will be remade, cleansed, balanced, and renewed. But it will no longer be as you know it. The forests will remember their voices, the mountains their hearts, and magic will no longer obey the will of man. If you destroy them, the world will remain as it is, fractured, imperfect, but free, Hermione whispered. And you're asking us to decide. Merlin nodded. You are the keepers now, the bearers of courage, wisdom, loyalty, and legacy. The staff awaits your will. The 4 relics descended, hovering before them like living stars. The Lady of the Lake bowed her head. Choose, children of Hogwarts, the world listens. Silence fell. The air shimmered, heavy with power. Neville was the first to speak. Destroy them. We've seen what happens when power like this wakes. It doesn't heal. It consumes. Hermione shook her head. But the world's already broken, Neville. Maybe this could mend it. Maybe Merlin was right. It's time for something new. Lysander's eyes burned. Do you think mankind will survive a rebirth like that? No. It would wipe everything clean. Magic might return, but what of those who can't wield it? Harry looked between them, the weight of their words pressing upon his heart. He thought of Hogwarts, of its towers against the dawn, of students laughing in the halls, unaware of how close they had come to ruin. He thought of the lady's sorrow, of her long vigil beneath the lake. He thought of Dumbledore's calm voice in the storm. He closed his eyes. Merlin, what did you choose? The old wizard's voice was soft. I chose mercy, but mercy is not always wisdom. Harry opened his eyes and lifted his wand. Then maybe this time we choose both. He turned to his friends. We don't have to destroy or remake the world. We can seal the relics together with our own magic, not to end them, but to keep them safe until the world truly needs them. Hermione's eyes filled with tears. A new kind of keeper. Lysander nodded slowly. A circle of guardians, not gods. Merlin's gaze brightened. So be it. The relics rose higher, their lights intertwining. The 4 friends joined hands beneath them, their wands raised. The air filled with the hum of ancient power, the song of the elements themselves. Harry spoke first, his voice clear and strong. By courage I bind the flame. Hermione followed. By wisdom I bind the water. Neville's voice was steady. By loyalty I bind the earth. And Lysander's whisper completed the circle. By legacy, I bind the air. The light exploded outward, blinding and pure. The stars above flared, then folded inward, collapsing into a single radiant point that shone brighter than the sun. For a moment, all was silence. Then the light descended, sinking into their hearts like a breath of peace. When they opened their eyes again, they stood once more in the courtyard of Hogwarts. The storm had passed. The sky was clear. The castle stood unharmed. McGonagall, Sprout, and the gathered students watched in stunned silence. Hermione glanced down. In her palm lay a single shard of crystal, pale and warm, faintly pulsing with light. Harry, Neville, and Lysander each carried the same. The relics were gone, yet not lost. Their power now lived within them. Far above, the stars shimmered faintly. And in the quiet that followed, the faint echo of Merlin's voice drifted through the night. Guard well the balance, keepers of Hogwarts, for the circle never ends. It only sleeps. The 4 looked at one another, a silent understanding passing between them. The danger was gone, but their watch had only begun. Harry turned toward the lake, where moonlight rippled over its calm surface. Somewhere beneath, he thought he saw a flicker of silver light, a woman's hand brushing the water in farewell. He smiled softly. "Rest easy, my lady. The keepers will endure." And as the winter wind swept gently across the grounds, carrying the scent of pine and magic, Hogwarts stood timeless once more, its secrets buried, its heart beating quietly beneath the stars. Spring unfurled slowly across the highlands, softening the frost that had long gripped the earth. The black lake thawed at last, its surface rippling with the first breath of warm wind, and Hogwarts stood gleaming once more beneath skies of pale gold. The great castle had weathered many storms through the centuries, yet few had shaken it so deeply as the awakening of Merlin's relics. Weeks had passed since that night, but the memory lingered. Students whispered of the blinding light that had filled the heavens, of the storm that had vanished with a single breath, and of the four who had stood beneath it: Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Neville Longbottom, and the mysterious Lysander Selwyn. No one spoke openly of what had truly happened. Even McGonagall, though keen-eyed and knowing, asked no questions that might stir the sleeping balance they had forged. She merely looked upon them sometimes with quiet pride, as one might regard a secret well kept. Harry found peace difficult. At night he often dreamed of the plain of stars, of the voices of the keepers whispering through the wind. He would wake with a start, feeling the faint pulse of warmth in his chest, the shard of crystal that now bound him to the relic's power. He could sense it in the world around him. The hum of the lake, the breath of the trees, the quiet beat beneath the stone floors of the castle. Magic no longer felt distant. It was alive, breathing, watching. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the forbidden forest, painting the towers in rose and amber, Harry stood alone on the astronomy tower. The air was mild, fragrant, with the scent of thawing earth. Far below, the lake shimmered like molten silver. He heard footsteps behind him. "Still keeping watch?" Hermione asked softly. He smiled faintly without turning. "Old habits." She came to stand beside him, her robes rustling in the wind. "The others are worried about you, you know. You barely sleep." "I'm fine." "Harry," she said gently, "you're still listening for danger, but it's over." He hesitated. "Is it? The relics are sealed, yes, but we're their keepers now. That power didn't vanish. It's inside us, and I can feel it, waiting." Hermione folded her arms. "You think it might wake again?" "I think nothing this old ever truly rests," he murmured. For a while they said nothing, only watched the sunset burn its colors across the lake. The sky reflected there seemed deeper than the heavens themselves. At last, Hermione spoke, her voice low. "Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing?" Harry glanced at her. "Binding the relics instead of destroying them?" She nodded. "Every day," he admitted, "but I think Merlin wanted someone to choose differently. He didn't want power to die. He wanted it to be guarded, and that's what we're doing." She smiled faintly. "Then we're keepers indeed." The wind shifted, carrying the faint sound of laughter from the grounds below. Students were walking by the lake, their voices carefree, the past months already fading into rumor. It warmed Harry's heart to hear it. He turned from the view, the weight in his chest easing. "Come on. Neville will have burned supper again if we don't get back." They descended the stairs together, their steps echoing in the old tower. Later that night, the four keepers met in the room of requirement. The chamber had reshaped itself into a wide, candle-lit hall, its walls lined with shelves of ancient tomes. At its center stood a round table carved from dark oak and etched with 4 runes, one for each element. Neville was already there, leaning back in his chair with a mug of butterbeer. Lysander stood by the window, gazing out at the stars. He turned as they entered, his expression thoughtful. "The castle feels different," he said, "quieter, as though it's listening to itself again." Hermione nodded. "The relic's power has settled into the foundations. It's part of Hogwarts now, and through it, part of us." Neville raised his mug. "To peace, then." Harry sat down opposite him, smiling. "To peace, and to keeping it." They clinked their mugs softly, the fire crackling nearby. After a moment, Lysander spoke again. "I've been studying the runes left beneath the lake. There's something curious in them. A prophecy, perhaps. A warning." Hermione leaned forward. "A warning?" Lysander drew a piece of parchment from his cloak and unrolled it. Upon it were drawn 4 symbols, intertwined: flame, wave, stone, and wind. Beneath them, a line of script shimmered faintly in silver ink. "When the 5th light rises, the circle shall test its keepers." Neville frowned. 5th light? There were only 4 relics. Lysander met Harry's gaze. "That's what I thought. But Merlin's writings speak of a 5th element, something beyond the others. Spirit, the breath that binds them all." Hermione's eyes widened. "If the others ever awaken again." "The 5th will rise to judge them," Lysander finished, "and perhaps to judge us." Silence fell. The fire snapped in the grate, sending sparks swirling upward. Harry leaned back, the faint glow beneath his skin pulsing once. "Then we keep watch. That's our duty now. If the 5th light ever comes, we'll be ready." Hermione nodded firmly. "And we'll face it together." Neville grinned. "Like always." Lysander's mouth curved into a rare smile. "Then Hogwarts is in good hands." That night, the castle dreamed. In the depths beneath its floors, where roots twined through stone and water whispered through ancient channels, the remnants of the relics pulsed faintly, answering one another in silence. The Lady of the Lake stirred in her eternal rest, her hand brushing the water like moonlight. The Flamekeeper's ember glowed faintly in the northern forge, its warmth spreading through the mountain rock. Beneath the forest, the root slumbered, its tendrils weaving deeper into the soil. And far above, where the wind swept clear and pure across the towers, the Airkeeper's essence shimmered faintly among the stars. All was calm, all was still. Yet deep within that stillness, something new began to stir, a presence unseen, neither earth nor air, flame nor water, a whisper of will, faint as a sigh. The circle breathes. It moved not in the world of men, but through the space between, the same realm where Harry and his friends had once stood. There, among the endless constellations, a faint shape began to glow, a 5th light, pale and soft, flickering like the first dawn. It did not speak nor yet wake, but it watched. Back in the waking world, Harry turned in his sleep, dreaming of water and stars. The shard of light within his chest pulsed once, as if answering a distant call. Then the glow faded, leaving only the slow rhythm of his heartbeat and the whisper of wind beyond the window. Hogwarts slept on, peaceful and eternal, but in the depths of its magic, the balance shifted ever so slightly, like the intake of a breath before the next great chapter. And far beneath the lake, where silence reigned, a single ripple spread across the dark water, delicate as a sigh. Summer dawned bright and golden over the Scottish hills, spilling warmth across the ancient stones of Hogwarts. The castle basked in sunlight, its towers gleaming as though newly awakened from a long slumber. For the first time in many months, laughter filled its courtyards, and the air was alive with the hum of life and lessons. The world had turned once more, steady and calm. Yet beneath that calm, unseen currents stirred. Old magic breathing, watching, waiting. Harry had almost begun to believe in peace. His days were spent helping McGonagall train the next generation of students, teaching defensive magic and dueling charm work. He found joy in it, quiet joy. The kind that came from knowing the children were learning not fear, but strength. Hermione often joined him, taking up her own post as Hogwarts' newest charms professor. Neville tended the greenhouses with his usual patience, coaxing strange and beautiful plants from the soil, and Lysander, restless and solitary, had taken to wandering the forbidden forest, studying the ancient wards buried beneath the trees. The four of them met each evening by the lake. It had become ritual, their hour of silence, their unspoken vow of vigilance. The water shimmered gold at sunset, as if reflecting the remnants of another world. One such evening, when the last light had begun to fade, Lysander spoke. His voice was low, thoughtful. "The relics are not asleep." Harry looked up sharply. "You've felt it too." Lysander nodded. "Their magic hums beneath the surface of everything, the forest, the lake, even the wind. It all vibrates with the same pulse." Hermione frowned. "It's the balance. The relics are connected to us now. As long as we live, their power remains in motion." Neville shifted uneasily. "And when we don't?" No one answered. The question hung in the air like a shadow. After a while, Hermione said softly, "That's why Merlin called us keepers. Not masters, not wielders, keepers. We're meant to preserve the balance, not to rule it." Harry smiled faintly. "You always did have a better head for prophecy than the rest of us." She smiled back, though her eyes were distant. "Let's just hope the balance agrees with us." The peace lasted until midsummer. It began as a whisper, a shiver through the stone floors of the castle. At first it was so faint that only Harry felt it, a subtle vibration beneath his feet as he walked the halls at night. But soon the torches flickered when he passed, and the portraits stirred uneasily, their painted eyes darting toward the windows. By the third night, even McGonagall felt it. "The wards are trembling," she said grimly, summoning them all to her office. "Something beneath the castle is stirring again. The centaurs refuse to enter the forest, and the merfolk have gone silent." Lysander's expression darkened. "The fifth light." Hermione went pale. "It's happening." McGonagall's sharp eyes moved between them. "What fifth light?" Harry met her gaze. "A final presence, something Merlin never spoke of. The spirit that binds the four relics. It's waking." "Then stop it," she said, her voice iron, "before it breaks what you've bound." They wasted no time. As night fell, the four keepers gathered once more at the lake. The air was thick and still, heavy with an unnatural calm. The moon hung low and full, its reflection gleaming like a perfect silver coin upon the water. Harry felt the pull even before they reached the shore, the deep, resonant hum that echoed through his bones. "It's calling to us." Hermione's wand trembled slightly in her hand. "The fifth element, the spirit, it isn't evil, Harry. It's just the sum of all things. It wants to be whole." Lysander's voice was grim. "Wholeness is dangerous. Perfection always demands sacrifice." Before any could reply, the water rippled. Light rose from the depths, a pale radiance that shimmered like liquid starlight. Slowly, a figure began to form upon the surface, neither man nor woman, yet both. Its eyes shone like twin moons, and its voice, when it spoke, was a whisper that carried across the world. Children of the circle, why do you tremble? The wind died. The castle itself seemed to listen. Harry stepped forward, his wand raised. We know who you are, the fifth light, the spirit of the staff. You're what Merlin feared most. Feared, the voice murmured, its tone neither cold nor kind. He feared himself. He sought to divide me, to scatter me among the elements. Yet division is only delay. All things seek unity in the end. Hermione's breath caught. You want to merge the relics to reform the staff. The figure inclined its head. The world yearns for balance. The keepers have done well, but balance cannot remain fractured. The time has come. Lysander stepped forward. And what of mankind? What happens if the relics unite? The spirit's voice deepened, resonant as the sea. Magic and life will be one. The walls between worlds will fall. There will be no death, no division, only harmony. Neville whispered, That sounds like peace. It sounds like the end of everything, Lysander said sharply. Harry's heart pounded. He remembered Merlin's warning, the choice between destruction and renewal. The spirit's promise was beautiful, terrible, irresistible. He took a slow breath. You said all things seek unity, but not all unity is good. The world needs its divides, life and death, day and night, courage and fear. Without them, there's no meaning. The spirit regarded him with an unreadable expression. Meaning is a fragile thing, Keeper. You would choose struggle over peace? Yes, Harry said quietly, because struggle is what makes us human. The spirit's glow dimmed, flickering like a dying star. Then you deny the circle's completion. Lysander raised his wand. We do. The lake erupted. Light burst upward in a column of white fire, blinding and soundless. The four were hurled backward, their wands torn from their hands. Around them the relic's marks flared to life, blue, gold, green, and silver, each blazing upon their hearts. Harry felt the power surge through him, 1,000 voices crying out in unison. The elements warred within him, fire and water, earth and wind, each pulling toward the light above. Hermione's voice reached him through the chaos. Harry, you have to seal it, now! He forced himself to his feet, every nerve burning. The spirit loomed above the water, its form unraveling into pure radiance. If you bind me again, it whispered, you bind your own souls with mine. You will be keepers forever. Harry raised his wand. Then so be it. The others joined him, their voices rising together in the old words of binding. By courage, wisdom, loyalty, and legacy, we hold the balance true. Let the circle rest. The light shrieked, pure, wordless, and collapsed inward, vanishing into the depths. Silence fell. When the world steadied, the lake was calm once more. The moon's reflection shone unbroken. The relics were gone. The spirit was gone. Hermione collapsed to her knees, breathless. Did we do it? Lysander nodded slowly. We did, but at a price. He placed a hand over his heart. The mark of the relic still glowed faintly beneath his skin. We are bound now to Hogwarts, to the circle, to each other. Neville smiled wearily. Could be worse. Harry looked toward the horizon where dawn was breaking. No, it's right. The magic belongs here, and so do we. As the first light of morning touched the towers, Hogwarts seemed to exhale, a soft sigh through stone and ivy. The wind stirred, gentle and alive, carrying with it a whisper that only they could hear. Keepers. The world endures. They stood together hand in hand, the lake gleaming before them and the rising sun behind. The relics were gone, but the balance remained, and so long as the keepers watched, it always would. Far below, unseen, the lady's song rippled faintly through the depths, joined by the murmurs of flame, stone, and air. The circle had not ended, it had simply begun anew. And so Hogwarts kept its heart, ancient, eternal, and alive.